Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future is Bilingual podcast. I've got my last interview of 2023. I'm sitting here with Urmi, and I would love for her to introduce herself because she is a woman of many hats and she does many things. So please tell us all about yourself.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for having me. My name is Urmi. I'm based in Montreal. And like you mentioned, I do wear many hats. I work in the financial services industry, but I do have some side projects that I work on. I am a mentor for a young female who want to work in finance. I'm a polyglot. I'm a speaker, a self-published author, blogger, and YouTuber. And I always say I can speak 4.5 languages, with Spanish being the 0.5, which I hopefully one day it's going to become one full language that I properly know. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and I love that idea of the 0.5. I know when you wrote it to me, I was like, I love that because for me, Italian is my 0.5. I'm still working on it. Obviously, I mean, we're all still working on all of our languages, even though I teach Spanish and I speak it fluently, right? Like I'm still learning words in Spanish. It's never ending, right? So tell us, what are the four other languages then, since you mentioned Spanish being the 0.5?
So I speak Italian, I speak Bengali, I speak English, and I speak French.
So nice. We share a lot of languages there. So how did you pick up all those languages, right? I think people always wonder with polyglots, like, wow, you're so talented. This is so amazing. But like, there's always, a story behind it. So tell us, what is your story with those?
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit by choice and then a little bit because of my surrounding.
Mhm.
So I was born and raised in Italy,
Okay.
and my parents are from Bangladesh. So they moved from Bangladesh to Italy after they got married, and they
Mhm.
wanted to have a better life, a better future. So I was born there,
And did they
and
speak Italian? Were
and
they learning it?
not really, like a little bit. Just my dad, he knew how to speak a little bit. My mom, not really.
Hmm.
And then what happened is I was born there. So when I was born at home, we would just strictly speak Bengali.
Oh, yeah.
But then when I went to school, I started to pick up Italian words. So I always say Italian is my adopted mother tongue because
Mhm.
I brought it at home, and I started to use that with my sister. So me and my sister, we would strictly communicate in Italian. And
Mhm.
then with my parents, I would just strictly speak Bengali. But then afterwards, it became a mix of Italian and Bengali. Like we would just have a conversation, and there were like Italian words in a Bengali sentence.
Right.
And then I started to go to school.
Mhm.
Did you want to say
Oh,
something?
I was going to say, just in those situations when everyone is bilingual, right? If everyone shares the two languages, you can really mix and throw things in, and like because everybody shares those two languages. So yeah, it's kind of fun. People have this negative view, especially people I think on the outside of the polyglot community, the language learning community, teaching and all that. Like they have a negative view of that what they call code mixing and switching and like Spanglish in the US, but like it's not a bad thing. Like if both people are understanding or both groups of people can understand, like where's the harm? And it's actually, I find it fun. I find it very playful. Like our kids will mix and, we mix. And I think it's if you don't understand it, you see it. If you have this Puritan view of like, this is English and this is Spanish or this is Bengali, this is Italian, right? You see it as like mixing, it's bad, but like it's actually really fun and beautiful when you can.
Well, now I live in Montreal, and it's a bilingual city.
Mm-hmm.
They do that. They mix English and French very, very often.
Mm-hmm.
I think they call it Franglish or something like that. I don't
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
remember
Franglish.
anymore. And
Franglais.
so
Yeah, yeah.
Franglish is
Or
so sorry.
Franglish. Yeah, you can do either.
The Franglish.
Mhm.
So basically, they just mix the two in a sentence. So you hear someone speaking in French, and suddenly they say a word in English because it sounds better when you say it in English. Like you have that much of an emphasis.
Mhm.
Like so yeah, it's I've noticed it here because I before it wasn't like that, especially when I was living in Italy. Like okay, at home we were just strictly speaking Bengali and Italian, but outside it was just Italian. Like you would just hear Italian. There was no like second language. And so in Montreal, it's been a different experience because I can hear both languages being spoken by people.
Italians mix a lot of English words in now. Like there's a lot of English that comes in. Like I've heard that certain like, you know, new words or things that come up and like they just throw it in English. So or maybe
so it depends. There are some English words that are like part of the Italian language. But I think still when you go to Italy, like I don't know, like if you have been there, but there are some places which is still strictly Italian. Like no one actually mixes it with English. So
yeah, I've been to Torino and to Milano, but yeah, just maybe it's like the people I'm hearing, you know, podcasters or YouTubers who are bilingual, right? Like they're kind of mixing in words and but yeah, maybe for sure there's people who aren't going to mix in. It depends what you know. But and it's funny that you mentioned because Montreal, which, you know, Canada's bilingual, Montreal's a bilingual city, and the Canadians are known for creating French words, whereas France will use an English word. Like we will say le weekend in France, but like in, you know, Canada, you're going to say la fin de semaine. And we will say shopping, le shopping, and they will say magasiner. You know, like we're going to go, like they created these French words to kind of avoid English because they're surrounded. They're, you know, Quebec is completely surrounded by English-speaking provinces and countries, the US to the bottom, and all this pressure. So they're like, we're going to keep speaking French. And even so, English is still kind of infiltrating, right? Which is so funny because in France, you hear lots of English words thrown in here and there. And, you know, we kind of think it's Canada being more pure. They're trying to save, you know, like they don't say chat, you know, le chat or chatte. They'll say clavardage, and like they'll make up all these words from the French word, which is, it's great. I love that. But you can't help the fact that when people are bilingual, they will mix, you know, it's just, that's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think here in Quebec, it's a little bit special because they're trying to, you know, maintain, protect the language, which is why,
100%.
like there has been issues like politically about this, like do we separate Quebec from like the rest of the Canada and have its own thing? And there are like a lot of laws now behind the use of French. Like everywhere you go, you're technically supposed to be using it. And I think it's because they just want to like protect and maintain the language, which is why they don't like to mix it. Yeah,
I support that. And they have la loi something on, you know, all these things, and that everything has to be, you know, in both languages. And I love that. I think that is so important to keep it, because if you don't take those steps, of course, it's going to be overtaken by English being the lingua franca globally, English being the language of the rest of Canada, the US, right? It would just be sucked up. So I 100% agree. But it's just funny to hear that, you know, you living there, you're like, oh, I do hear English thrown in here and there, because we like to think, oh, Canada's so much more, you know, gung-ho about using only French. But no, nobody's immune, especially Canadian. I mean, they're bilingual. You know, most people in Quebec, the youth for sure, right? Like they're bilingual. And maybe the older generations only speak French, but no, like people nowadays, like they're learning both, they speak both fluently. So it's hard not to.
Yeah, exactly.
So interrupted you.
It's okay.
So you were saying you grew up, you spoke Bengali at home, Italian with your community, also your sister, which is a common thing I've heard from a lot of people, right? Even if the parents have this home language, the kids themselves are going to usually use that dominant language of the community because they're in school. That's just the normal. This is what I use with friends, kids my age, right? Like the parents are the only kind of people to speak the home language often. Not always, but often.
Yeah. Even with like our Bengali friends, we were just strictly speaking Italian instead of speaking Bengali. And then afterwards, I started to learn English because it was mandatory at school. And then I chose a program that was mainly about learning languages. So I chose French and I chose German. And this is where I never tell anyone that I used to speak German because I lost it. I completely lost the language. I never practiced it, even though back in the days, I actually like had a very solid knowledge of German. Like I had an actual like certificate issued by the Goethe Institute that's like certified that I could speak it. But and this is what I regret. I regret that I was not working on it afterwards. So.
And you don't count that as a 0.5? Because you could have 0.5. Just kidding.
No. No, I remember nothing of it. I feel like if I listened to someone speaking German, I would not
Really?
understand much of it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us have that experience. But I hear it all the time being a French and Spanish teacher in a high school. The parents always tell me, I studied French, I took 4 years of Spanish and I don't remember anything. So I think it's very common. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And I mean, same, I studied Arabic at university. And like if you gave me those same texts to read now, like I would struggle. I'd be like, oh, wait, how do you pronounce this? Oh, what is this? What is this? So, if you're not practicing, then of course you're gonna lose it, right? And
Yeah,
it's
and I also
an extra language. It's not a language you grew up with. There's
Mhm.
nothing that's keeping it attached to you, which is one of the things we say is so important to raise your kids is to have it, those early years are so critical up to that puberty age is what the research is kind of saying is so important because it'll still be there, right? Like they're not going to lose it. If they've had 13 years growing up hearing, for you, Bengali, like you're not going to lose, you're not going to forget it because it's
Mhm.
so integrated into like, your experience. You heard it so much, even if it was only at home and you had all this experience in Italian, right? If we look percentage wise, like how many hours here, how many hours there, it's still, you're not going to lose it, right? Whereas the German, you added it on and like, poof, it's gone. So yeah,
Yeah.
we all have.
Yeah, and I also think with German it's a little bit different because it's not a language easy to remember because when I studied it, it was a lot about memorization.
Mhm.
And the problem also was that like if you listen to it, it doesn't resemble anything like it doesn't resemble to Italian, it doesn't resemble to Spanish, it doesn't resemble to Portuguese, So it's not easy to say, okay, I will remember some of the things, like it's completely different. The sound is different. The way the sentences are made, it's different. Like it's not like, okay, let's say I learn Portuguese and I know how to speak Italian and Spanish. Then you can say, okay, even though if I haven't practiced Portuguese, I can
You're still going to
somehow,
understand.
yeah.
And
So,
I felt that I was cheating when I started learning Italian because before that, like I said, I had done Arabic, I had learned Polish, I had done these languages that were very different from English and French and Spanish. And then I did Korean on my own, which again, can't remember anything. Like I barely remember anything because it's so different. And then when I went to Italian, I was like, wow, I've barely studied and I understand a podcast. Like it felt like cheating because the French and Spanish gave me so much base that the other couple things that I didn't understand, I'd be like, oh, okay, what's this word? Oh, okay, what's this word? There was so little that I had to kind of learn. So yeah, same with like Portuguese, like all those Romance languages, it's kind of like cheating. I was like, oh, this is great. Like I could pick up Italian like so quickly versus I've been working my butt off trying to learn Arabic and it's not sticking. And I don't understand a basic conversation because it's so different, right? Like even
yeah,
someone just saying like, I like to do this. And I'm like, I know the word like, but I don't know what you just said after that. So,
yeah,
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 so
I
hard
agree.
to
I
struggle.
agree.
And so, how do you use all these languages in your, like, how is it part of your, I was looking at your YouTube and you have like, do you teach Italian as well? Are you coaching?
Uh, no, so my YouTube channel, it's more about creating content where I invite language coaches
Mm-hmm.
and I just tell them to share about the services, the program.
Okay.
But I also do like have conversation sessions with a few students where I just have conversation with people who want to practice Italian
Mm-hmm.
and English. So I also do that, but it's something like more on a side. It's not something that I do as a
Okay.
full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like because I have so much knowledge with languages, I feel like I am good enough to teach people and tell them, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Because I also like even when I came to Montreal, for instance, I had to work a little bit on the Quebecois because it was a different sort of beast to do, if I have to put it this way. And I had to like work on it and look for resources to make sure that I was like mastering it, and I was just making sure that I knew how to communicate properly in French.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why like English, it was something that I was taught and I knew how to teach it, and the same thing with Italian. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've done it so many times, it comes naturally giving advice. That's great. How do you maintain these languages? Like, do you have certain things that you do I mean, Bengali being your native tongue, like right, your parents' language, I'm sure you can speak to it. But what about, do you still use Italian, or how do you get practice, and how are you practicing Spanish? I know you're working on that. So like, how do you balance speaking 4.5 languages and making progress? And you have a full-time job in finances, which has nothing to do, right? Like my job, I practice because I'm teaching Spanish. Okay, I'm speaking Spanish all day. I have Spanish colleagues, Spanish speaking, I should say. But like, if that's not your bread and butter, that's not your main work, like how do you fit this in? How do languages fit into your everyday?
So for me, I consider Italian and Bengali my mother tongue. So yes, I only speak Bengali with my parents, but with the rest of the family, I speak Italian. And so when I speak to my sister, it's strictly Italian, and I still talk to my sister, so we have to communicate in the language that we have always used. Same goes with my cousins and stuff like that. And of course, I live in Montreal. I work in a French environment, so this is how I've been using French, because we serve Quebecois Francophone clientele, and I leave Montreal, which is, as I said, bilingual. So when I go out, depending on who I have in front of me, I switch between English and French. And at home, I also use like English and Bengali. So I'm using all of them equally. If I have to say the truth, I use them pretty much equally. Like there is not one of them that is like predominant in what I use. I use them equally because at work, I strictly have to speak French. At home, I have to speak Bengali and English. And with my parents and my sister, I have to speak Bengali and Italian, so I speak them equally.
So you're just constantly practicing all of them all the time, which is
literally,
which is great. And then how do you know which language to speak to? You said clients come in, some speak English, some speak French. Do you wait for them to address you? And if they say bonjour, if they say hello, or I know when I cross the border, at the border crossing, they'll say like bonjour, hi, like they'll say both to like they don't know what language you're speaking coming in, which I thought was so cute.
Yeah, usually we will, French is the predominant one at the workplace, so we have to use the French. And if we see that the person is not comfortable, we switch it to English. But our first action, it's really just to start with the French. So,
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Start, see how they do, and then
yeah,
if need be, you can switch. That makes sense.
exactly.
And then how do you connect with your Bengali roots in any other way, like watching movies, or I don't know, are there things that you do, taking trips? Have you ever been able to go back?
Yeah, I went to Bangladesh 4 times. I don't watch any particular Bengali movies, but I do watch Bollywood movies, and
There you go.
it's not in Bengali, the language that they use, it's in Hindi. So when I watch Bollywood movies, I usually like even Hindi, like I never say that I know how to speak it because I don't know how to speak it, but I watch the movies and I understand what's going on.
Oh, there's
Yeah, I
similarities
understand
between Bengali and Hindi.
a little bit, but not so much.
Huh, interesting.
Not as much. No, not as much. For some things, yes, for other things, no. If someone on the street stops me and asks me something in Hindi, I would probably understand because I heard people around me speaking in Hindi and I understood the conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just you've been exposed, you've heard enough that it's kind of seeped in.
Yeah, I've been watching Bollywood movies since I was a kid and I never stopped. So like I would always put the subtitles at the beginning.
Yeah.
And even now I do it, but I do understand what's going on. So
Right. So it's just kind of there in case, but you've picked up so much. See, so you actually have like all these little other 0.5s. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit here.
I am not.
And why? I have two questions. Why Spanish? But my other question was also why Montreal? Like you grew up in Italy, like why come to cold Canada
And that's the question I ask myself
every winter?
every winter, literally.
Yep.
Although this winter was pretty, it's been mild, so I
Yeah.
should not complain.
Knock on wood. We haven't had
Knock on
snow
wood.
yet, so same here.
Literally. No, Montreal has been for personal reasons, and then I decided to stay here. And why Spanish? I don't know how to explain it. Like Spanish, I always think I was probably like Latin in some other like life or
Life.
something.
Yeah.
But I love the sound of
Mhm.
Spanish. Like how Spanish sound is just so amazing.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't know if it's because of this resemblance with Italian or in the Italian culture. I don't know if it's that, but I just fell in love with it.
Mhm.
And so I decided to stick to it. So every time okay, I listen to someone speaking Spanish, like I'm dancing in my mind. I
Mhm.
don't know if it makes sense. So I love the sound of the language. I like everything is just so much fun and
Mhm.
amazing when someone speaks Spanish, and I very much enjoy it. I think there's like beauty in the sound of the Spanish language.
Right. There's something that attracts you to the Spanish language, which yeah, it's a beautiful language. Do you focus on Spain Spanish or Latin American Spanish? Because that's always the Latin
Latin
American.
America.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, me too. I like the Spain accent. I don't have it. I find it's interesting, right? But it's if I had to pick one, it's almost like the Portuguese. You have to pick Brazilian versus Portuguese, like Portugal. But I think it's even, I don't know if it's more or less. I've heard people say those are two completely different. And I don't know. I don't speak enough Portuguese to know if it's more or less the same with Spain Spanish. And Latin American has so much diversity in and of itself. My Puerto Rican colleagues talking to my Costa Rican colleague, they're like, what do you call this? Oh, what do you call this? Because we're teaching a word usually based from the Spanish word. We have these conversations all the time where it's like, oh, we're teaching this word, and my colleagues, native speakers, are like, I never say that. We call it this in Puerto Rico. And my Costa Rican colleagues like, oh, I call it this. So there's so much diversity in and of itself, just looking at Central and South America, compared to Spain. And it's kind of funny that we picked this one and we teach it, but like the likelihood of our students, being in North America, the likelihood that they're going to go to Spain versus anywhere else, Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, like there's so many more countries. There's 20 countries over here and just one over there. Why are we teaching the one when we could be?
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, we kind of have that battle all the time of like, we never say this word.
Yeah. And it's funny about this like Spanish language. I went to Mexico and I went to Punta Cana, and
Nice.
I also have some Venezuelan colleagues,
Yeah.
and so it was interesting to listen to how different the accents were, but I was able to pick that they were different.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listened to someone speaking Spanish from Spain, and it was very different too. It
Yeah.
was very different. Like it's a different kind of accent. So it was interesting, but I feel like the Spanish from Spain is probably a little bit more. I don't know if difficult is the word, but it's different. It's
Yeah.
very different. Like I feel like if I listen to someone speaking Spanish who's from Mexico, I understand it better than someone who's from Spain.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to say which is harder. I definitely think it maybe depends what you've heard more. The diversity, you have to have a good enough language. You have to have a good enough grasp of the language to even hear the differences. So I teach a lot of Spanish to high schoolers, and I've asked them before, I've played them a recording, and I'm like, can you tell what country this person is from? No. And I'm trying to teach them, okay, if you hear this, like, the kind of lisp thing, like cinco instead of cinco, that's Spain. Like you can hear, like if they say certain words, if you hear them say sumo instead of jugo for juice, you can tell it's, okay, that's Spain. The same way, English has a lot of variation if we're looking at the US versus, England. And I'm reading a book right now that's the author is English. And so, they're writing different things, the lorry, like we're in our flat, and like there's different words that we don't use,
Yeah.
but if you know them, you're like, oh, no problem, like that's no big deal. I can tell exactly where you're from, even in a writing, right? I don't hear her accent, but I see the words that she's using. And I think, but you have to have a certain level, because I remember when I was learning Polish, my ex-husband is Polish, and I remember it took me a long time to finally hear his mom's accent. Like I had to have heard enough podcasts and videos and movies and like other kind of dialects, if for lack of a better word. And then I heard all of a sudden, it was like a light bulb, like, oh my God, she says it this way. And like I heard other people say the same word this, and I was like, she has an accent. Like I was like, what, everyone has an accent. But having only like heard it amongst our friends and his family, and they're all from the same region, like it took me a while. And I remember being like wow, my level must be getting better because I can hear that distinction. And like same thing happened with me in Arabic. Like I can hear now, I know enough about the different dialects that I'm like, oh, that person is from Syria or, you know, Palestine or something. This person's from Morocco or Algeria. Oh, this person's from Egypt because they're pronouncing things this way. And like it's like such a great moment when you can like actually hear that. You have enough knowledge to actually start distinguishing, because native speakers, right? They'll do that immediately. They can hear someone and be like, I know where you're from. Like I could do that with English. Oh, I know what part of the US you're from because I know enough to distinguish. Or, oh, you sound like you're from New Zealand. You sound like you're from South Africa. You sound like you're from Ireland, right? I can tell all those different accents, whereas someone learning English would take them a long time to start. Like they're just trying to understand, right? Like me with Arabic, I just want to understand. But it is nice to reach that level where you're like, oh my gosh, I can hear differences. I can hear this. So
Yeah, I actually had a similar experience after learning English and after moving to Canada and having met so many people from different countries. And I can pick up the differences in accents when I listen to someone speaking English who's from Scotland.
Oh yeah, that's a hard one.
That's a hard one.
That's a hard one. Even for me, I struggle.
It's a hard one. Someone from Ireland, same thing with someone who speaks Australian. And even when I go to UK, because now my parents live in UK, even they're like, depending on which area of like England you are, they have a very different accent. Very
Which is crazy. It's not just, you know, compared to the US or Canada, it's this small country, and the distinctions, the differences is crazy. It's so great. I'm like, how are you all so distinct and different? Like you're like a few kilometers away, but you can tell, right? Oh, Liverpool, oh, you're from this place, you're from this place. It's so funny, but it's so beautiful at the same time. Like I love that. I love that diversity. I hate it and I love it. I hate it when I have to learn it, right? Like Spanish. I'm like, why are there 20 words for popcorn? Can you all just agree to call popcorn one thing? But then, you know, in Arabic, even worse story. They can't even agree on how to say, how are you? Every country has their own way. And I'm like, ah. But it's so beautiful at the same time. So like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Like there's more, there's always more. And accents, right? Accents are so beautiful. I think, you know, everyone has one. I have an accent because I grew up in the Northeast of the US, right? You have an accent because you learned English and you speak other languages, but there's not like a correct and an incorrect or better or worse. Like I hate that idea of, right? I have an accent when I speak French and Spanish and all my languages, and I think it's beautiful, right? Like we need to just embrace that. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, but it was hard to digest at the beginning.
For sure.
It was, for me, it was hard because like every time I would like I used to hate hearing myself. I used to hate hearing myself because I was like, oh my gosh, I sound like literally like someone who has such a big accent. Like I would have this big accent, and it took me a while to accept it. But now when I hear other people with an accent, I'm like, you know what? It's not that bad. They sound amazing. Why was I criticizing myself for this and judging myself? And so now I embrace it because it just means I can speak more than one language.
Exactly. And it also makes the language sound different. I teach English, and I love like when my English students will say something in English, but the way they say it is like, you can tell it's kind of been translated. And I'm like, okay, I wouldn't say it like that, but like I get what you mean. And it's almost like more beautiful. I'm like, I love like that expression. Like I'm hearing you kind of like translate this other expression into English, but like it's really cool. Like I just think it brings so much cool stuff people are sharing, and you know, like amazing, you're able to speak my language, right? Like I grew up, I just learned it, but like the fact that you put time and effort and you learned it, you know, like we need to definitely embrace that, because people who've never learned another language don't realize how much of a struggle it is, right? Like, oh, you know, you just pick it up. Like, no, there's so much work, especially as an adult, right? If we're not children, you know, you're Italian, Bengali, like, okay, you were lucky to grow up in that bilingual environment, but when you learned your other languages, you had to put in effort, you had to put time and energy, and, you know, it doesn't just like happen. I mean,
no, exactly.
Unless you're, you know, but case in point, people who are immigrants in a country 20 years and they don't really speak because you know, just being in a country doesn't make you a speaker of a language, you know.
No, exactly.
You'll speak basics. How much is this? Thank you, goodbye, you know, the basics.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, people don't realize how much effort. And so we really need to give people more credit. Like, wow, that's amazing that you learned to speak English. And I mean, everyone kind of hates hearing their own voice, even myself, you know, my native tongue. I make a podcast and it was very awkward to hear myself when I had to edit it. And like, you know, it's kind of cringy, but you get over it. You're like, it's fine. And I mean, maybe making your YouTube, you have to edit a lot, I'm sure. So you're hearing yourself talking. And
Yeah,
you know, you just got to get over it, right? Like it is what it is.
it is what it
And
is.
other people don't hear you the way we hear ourselves, right? We're
Yeah.
super critical, like you said. We can, you know, I hear every mistake I make and super critical of the way that I speak another language. And oh my God, I knew that was subjunctive. Why didn't I use it? And I should have said it this way. And my pronunciation, and I'm critiquing myself. But other people are like, wow, awesome. Like we understood what you meant. It's okay. You didn't say it perfectly. You know, there's so much more forgiving than we are to ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. So it's something we have to work on. Myself included. Okay. Do you have, especially speaking with so many coaches, do you have like resources or things you've discovered, or should we just head to your YouTube channel and find all the coaches we can?
Definitely on my YouTube channel, you will find good resources. Like if you're looking to learn Italian, if you're looking to learn English, if you're learning to look French, these people, they do offer good services. But I used some good resources when I was working on my French. And I'm talking about like a couple of years ago when I was trying to like work on it. There are a few YouTubers that I really like, and one of them is called A Piece of French, and the other one is called French Morning with Elisa. And there is another one that I used to listen to. I think it's called Ma Prof de Français or quelque chose comme ça. I don't remember now.
Yep. She's on Instagram for Québécois.
Exactly.
Yeah. I follow her. I love her stuff. And I will put all these into the show notes. So if people are listening, and I find that that's super important with a big language like Spanish, French, English, is there's too much and people get overwhelmed. Oh my God, I want to learn Spanish. But if you look up Spanish podcasts, my God, you're going to find millions of podcasts. It's not like looking up, okay, I want to learn Bengali, or I'm looking up this dialect of Arabic, right? I can find like a really niche, okay, there's only a few people making stuff for this dialect. But if you're going to look up, I want to learn English, good luck. You know, the resources are limitless. So it's really nice to have like a word of mouth that I use these, they're good. You know, I know this person, they do good work. That is so important because I think we will get lost in the sea of resources. French, you know, it's taught everywhere all over the world. It's a big language there's almost too much, right? It's the problem. Some people are studying a language and they don't have enough resources. They want to learn like Nahuatl or some like small indigenous language. And then there's people who want to, no, I just want to learn French, but they don't have like the knowledge of where to go. And then they get overwhelmed and then they give up, or they try Duolingo and okay, that's going to teach you only so much. So you got to push it to the next, you know, watch people hear the resources. So I think that's really great because even for myself, I want to give my students ideas, but I'm like, it's going to take me forever to curate a list of French resources or Spanish resources. It's almost like I need my students to do the testing and come back to me. Which one did you like? Which one did, because I don't have, they don't pay me enough to to curate a list for them because it would take so long, right? It would take a lot of, you'd have to listen to it and see what they say, and is it good? And it's a lot. So definitely we'll put the resources in that you've used, specifically for Québécois, but also just for French in general. Because ma prof de français, she's great. She does good stuff.
Yes, she's pretty good.
And what do you have any for Spanish? And you can think about it. You can send them to me, you know, later.
I do have for Spanish. I just remember the title right now, but there's one that I listened to. It's a podcast about these are two Mexicans and they talk about the Mexican cultures, but they also talk a little bit about the Spanish language and some of the structures and stuff like that. And I listen to them because I feel their podcasts is like episodes are like 20 minutes long.
Mhm.
but it's a good amount, and I feel like you can learn a lot. I just don't remember right now the title, but when I do
Oh no,
find it,
you
I'll
can
send
hit
it
the,
to you.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's also, it's something good to keep in mind if you're looking at podcasts or YouTube, like what do you like, like, because there's different types. There's the podcasts that are 5 minutes, 10 minutes. There's ones that are an hour long. And some people
Mhm.
prefer, right? They want to listen to something that's an hour, maybe over multiple days, or they do it in one big chunk and they get they're studying, there's just, you have to know like what is good for you, right? Like, okay, I really just want some quick episodes. So I have this podcast, it's 10 minutes, great, get it done with. I can do like one every day. But someone else might say, no, I want the 30-minute, I want the conversation, I want the in-depth talk about the culture. So I think it's really, you have to think for yourself, what works for me, what works in my schedule, right? We all have busy lives, we have jobs and kids and things that we do outside. So we can't just
But
listen to podcasts all day
I
or
can
watch.
tell you two good YouTubers that they came to my mind right now. One is called Spanish After Hours, and the other one is called Spanish with Vincente.
Okay.
These are two YouTubers, and these are pretty good for Spanish. They like, one of them just does like mainly vlogs, and the other one does vlogs as well, but he talks about different vocabulary. So he has like I don't know, let's say he's in the kitchen today and he's gonna go over all the things about like all the things that we have in the kitchen, and he will tell them in Spanish. So he is, I think, based in Spain. Spanish with Vincente, I think he's based in Spain. And I don't remember where the other person is based, Spanish After Hours. I don't remember where she's based. I think she's also in Europe.
Mhm.
So those are pretty good as well.
That is good. And I think it's good to just like remember, because even when I'm teaching my students on our books, our stuff is based in Spain Spanish, it's people will understand you because native speakers, they know kind of those differences. Like we mentioned how I know the difference between like some British words versus American words. So even if you use the Spain word with someone in Mexico, like they're gonna understand, or they're gonna ask you, what do you mean? You're gonna communicate and show them in a different way if they don't understand. But most likely the people you're speaking with have some knowledge about these differences because
Yeah.
they watch content from Spain, right? Like they know that there's this word that's different than the one that they use, and they'll help you. So it's like knowing the at least one word is better than not knowing any word, right? So whether you watch,
Yeah.
for people who maybe say, I don't know which country, like I don't know which dialect I should pick, I don't know which country I should focus on. It's okay. Any Spanish that you learn is fine. Like even if it's kind of like a mix, it's okay.
Mhm.
Like just pick up some stuff. People will understand you. People will help you, because language is about communicating. And like more than likely than not, the people you're communicating with will help you. So like I try and tell
Yes.
my students that too. Like they're gonna help you, right? Like they're not just like judging you and like, I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, I give you an F. Like they're not your teacher. They're trying to understand. They're trying to help you. And I'm
Yes.
trying to help them
Yeah.
too. But like it's, there's not as much pressure to be right. Are you using the correct
Mhm.
word? It's like you're just trying to get a point across or have an interaction, buy something, do something. So, hopefully we can curate a couple things based on what you've said, and I'll pull out some that I have just that I've given to students or used over the years. So we'll make a little list, because I think that is super important with French, Spanish, right? These languages that we share.
Mhm.
Italian as well. I mean, there's less, but there's a lot of resources for Italian. So I will put out some that I have. You guys can go check out the list on Urmi's YouTube channel, because she's got so many good coaches and people. Okay,
Mhm.
before we wrap up, I do always ask if you can teach us a word or a phrase in one or more of your languages. So maybe both Bengali and Italian would be nice if you had like a word or an expression or something.
I'm gonna tell you an expression in Italian, and I want you to guess it.
Oh, okay, it's a test.
Okay, because you said you know 0.5, so I'm gonna test you.
Ay,
Okay, chi va piano va sano e lontano.
okay, so chi va piano, who goes slowly. Passano y lontano goes like, I want to say like healthy, but that's like Spanish, like well and far. Like you're gonna go far if you go slow. Like you're gonna progress more than trying to go fast and burn out. That's my
Yeah,
liberal
yeah, 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 yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah, it's that's what it means. It just means that you have to keep going. It's
Right.
not about how fast you go. It's more about the consistency to reach something.
Oh, so perfect. And we're recording this right before New Year's. So that's a great reminder that you don't
Yes.
have to run 10 miles a day. If you run 1 mile every day, that's better than running 10 and then not running at all. Right? Not that I don't want to run, but very nice. Okay. Thanks for the test. Grazie mille.
Prego.
How about a word in Bengali, just so we can hear it? Because people have never heard Bengali in their life. So
it's not an expression, it's like a
something you
sentence.
say. Yeah, yeah.
তুমি খুব সুন্দর.
Okay. And what does it mean?
It means you're very pretty.
Oh, what a
Yeah.
nice compliment. Okay, well, I will not be going to Bangladesh and trying to pick up any women, but thank you. Maybe a listener will be. You never know. You never know when that could come in handy. But no, it's a good expression to know. If someone gives you a compliment, they, oh, okay. So how do you say thank you?
Dhanyabad.
Dhanyavad. Okay. Well, dhanyavad for the interview. Grazie mille. It's such it was so nice to connect and talk. And I know we have so many languages in common. I think we could have delved into more detail, but we'll keep it short and sweet because we're both busy. And yeah, I wish you the best for the new year. This will be coming out, of course, after the new year. But for those listening, Happy New Year as well. Even if it's, I don't know what month it's going to be, but yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I will definitely, like I said, put links so that you guys can check out Urmi. And if you said you do give like one-on-one coaching for English and Italian.
It's just conversation that I give, just conversation services.
For practice, so it's for students, right? Like if they want to practice.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Very fun.
So I also do that, both in English and in Italian.
Awesome. Okay, well, you might have some people who are interested in that, so we'll send them your way. That's great. And yeah, wish you the best. Thank you so much. And stay warm up there in Montreal.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.